Welcome to episode 2 of Back to the Basics. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the arrangement track. First, we're going to go up into the global tracks. This is this little button, kind of looks like a folder with an arrow down. And that opens up to the marker track, the signature track, the tempo track, and the arrangement track. Once you have that turned on, then we can actually create some arrangement markers using the little plus sign right there. Now, you can resize these, which is great. You can move them, but you can only move them. It's like a shuffle feature. You can't move them freely. There has to be something built from the left of our screen here, and we build it to the right. So there's a verse. I'm going to make the verse twice as long. I tend to do that. And once I have that selected, I'm going to push T on my keyboard and J to go to the join tool. I'm going to shift click on the second verse and make it into one big verse. That's kind of cool. Okay, then let's do a couple more, the chorus and the bridge. I'm going to zoom out so we can see them all simultaneously. Now let's do one more just to show you this. We can do custom names, rename, but there's a benefit to using the 5 that are already in here. And that's because they're tied into the drummer track. If you create these arrangement options first, and I don't recommend doing the whole form right now, just do one of each for a moment. Just do an intro, a verse, a chorus, a bridge, and an outro. Or even, I don't even do the outro most of the time. I'll fade out with the chorus, bridge alternation. But once you have these 4, create a drummer track. And when we do that, it's going to put drum patterns in the style of the drummer from the library, but also in the part of the song. So let's listen a little bit to the intro, the verse, chorus, and the bridge. Now, you'll see if you click on any of these regions that down where we typically have these beat presets for each of the drummers, this is a custom one, and each of these is a custom one that's been created in the style of that part of the song. So they've done a little engineering for us in terms of choosing that. Now, if I choose the track header to make sure all of these are selected again, I can come through and pick different genres. So this is the experimental songwriter. We can do electronic or hip hop or whatever. All of them work like this. And then we could come through and individually customize each one by selecting on just one of them and making those changes. So it's a really nice way that the arrangement track ties in through the drummer track. That's super cool. What we want to do next is let's actually play just a little bit of a keys part here, because I want to show you another step in this process of why these tracks are so cool. Right, so we have just a really simple thing. Something simple. And I'm not sure we want the experimental kit, but we're going to go with it for a minute. Right, so we just are going to loop that for a minute, maybe to make it just play a little bit smoother. I'm going to right click on the track header, turn on the groove track functionality, and groove track those together. And really quickly, because I liked what I just did, I'm going to turn on the capture recording functionality and capture what I just did, move it to here. I'm just building out a quick verse, right? That's all I'm doing. and we're going to groove track that as well. Say it's perfect, right? Say we're perfect, perfect, perfect. Let's reorganize our tracks a little bit here. Now I've got one verse, the rhythm section ready, right? I could add another keyboard part, a piano, guitar stuff. I could do a lot of things to this, but say I get it finally to the point I like it, I can option click my arrangement track and move it out past the chorus. And now I've got the verse with all the automation, all the instruments, all the programming I've done in that verse slot. Say we get the chorus how we want it. I can move a chorus out here and we can then go from there. Now, just to give you a visual representation for a moment, we're going to choose the keys here and make them this fuchsia pink color, right? Just so you're clear what I'm doing. Say verse 1 and verse 2 are really good, but I want to change the order, right? Maybe I'm not happy with how verse 1 fits at the beginning of the song, and it makes more sense in the second slot. I'm going to move this verse over. I'm going to move this verse out past that chorus. And all of a sudden, I've switched everything in those two places, and we can listen to them without having to really do a ton of copying and pasting or anything else. It's that easy to use these arrangement tracks that way. There's a few other things to think about. One of them is if we want, we can colorize these as well. Maybe we want all the verses to be, that color and all of the choruses to be this color. And we want the intro to be some shade of blue and the bridge to be, orangish red, rust color, whatever you want. So now we can actually see the song in colorized form with the arrangement track. Okay, we have the ability to disconnect them. We can suspend content creation, and that's by clicking right on the edge of where it says arrangement in the global tracks. We can suspend content. That just means that when we move the markers around, it won't move all the content. But if we leave them connected, then it will move the content. Typically, I leave them connected. Every once in a while, when I'm doing something, it's like we can move things around or screw things up with these. And so you want to disconnect it so you don't do anything. When I have them connected, we can shift the edges like this, and it won't move the stuff below them. Even though they're still connected. So that is perhaps how you might take an existing song that you have and actually add in some of those things. So let me show you in this other song, which I created without the global track, how we might do this. And this is kind of an interesting song because it doesn't have a chorus. This is 3 verses in a row. Definitely an experimental phase, but that's okay. So we're going to do intro, which actually works. And then we have a verse, which goes, I'm pretty sure right about to there. Might be to there. And then there's like a little interlude. And we could just make this all the way to here. I'm fairly certain that it would be fine to do just that little bit of part afterwards. So verse, another verse, and actually we are following the same pattern. And literally it's like, I know it's kind of a little different type of verse at the end, but it's still a verse, a little shorter, half one. So this would be a perfect example of if I wanted to move one of these verses around to hear what it would sound like. Now that I've added these on, you can see everything got moved. That's kind of intense that I just added it to a project that wasn't made this way, but it still moved it all. Let's undo that because I don't want to mess up the song, but I do like that now I have these verses here. So a really useful tool in terms of organization on new tracks that you're starting or existing tracks that don't have it. You could add these on and still use it. This technique, I think, is one of the more important ones for people who keep on getting stuck with the 8-bar loop syndrome. That means you create something that's 4 or 8 bars long and it's amazing, and you don't know how to get it any longer. Well, this technique is really useful because it helps you start thinking about song form before you actually start writing. And so you might be thinking, well, let's start with the arrangement track and let's put in our 8 bars in that first verse. And all of a sudden you're thinking, this is a verse, right? Or you start with the chorus, with the hook, and you're really building that out. Well, you're thinking about it, and then you can take some of those elements to fill out the first verse. And they have to lead into each other. They have to fit together. But you're thinking about the long game instead of just that short clip. And I think that mental switch is one of the most important parts with all of this. And it's so highly recommended that you sort that out from the beginning. Anyway, Logic and its arrangement track, very helpful. And it's something that, as a part of this series of Back to the Basics, would be considered one of those fundamental building blocks of using this software. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments what topics you're interested in, but we're going to keep on covering a lot of these basic but useful and things that we can apply to our everyday music production process.